Welcome in to Come Get Some. I'm Blake Williams, joined here with Mr. Come Get Some himself, Gregg Williams and Chuck Booms, and it's a Victory Monday. Hey, driving in, GDubb, we actually saw that there's a new thing here in Cleveland this year. Pretty cool on the digital billboards on the highway. They even got that Victory Monday signs up there.
That was pretty cool,
this year. And I guess we didn't win the first game, so we didn't get a chance to see it. But I got a chance to see that driving into the studios today. So it's a congrats Victory Monday to Cleveland, and thank you for joining us again today here, Chuck.
Oh, listen, my pleasure. Too bad they don't let me run the board. I would have said, you're lucky you played Jacksonville. That's what I would have put on the board. You lucky sons of guns.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
It was. I know that people like it. To me, again, we talked about it last week, Coach and Blake. When Flacco came and the offense was clicking and it was just really exciting, fun football, you could see how it affected the defense. Garrett and them are coming out of their shoes to get the ball back so we can see the offense do this, do that. And then I watched that yesterday, and it's like a root canal. It's really not that enjoyable. So it's hard for me to get into the, yay, they won. I mean, to me, the game reminded me of if someone said, hey, do you want to come over and watch an adult film? And I said, oh, yeah, that sounds great. And then I get there, and they pop it in, and it's Roseanne Barr and John Goodman going at it. Right. Technically, it's still an adult film, but now I had to see Roseanne and John Goodman nude. Yeah. So it's a difference in – so I am happy. I probably would have been with you guys saying, hey, that's pretty cool, but – it was a rough watch.
It was. I mean, it was definitely like the tale. We talked about it. We watched it. The tale of two halves. It looked like maybe they were going to run away with it. At halftime, and it flipped. It hit a stalemate. And it was just like to a degree which team was going to lose first,
who's going to make the most mistakes.
Who's going to make the most mistakes? For sure. What was your kind of main takeaways? GDubb from the game this weekend,
especially from the first half. I really do think that they made a very strong commitment on making sure keeping Deshaun on time. Did a much better job in the run game. As you and I both talked about, is you don't have to base block. You don't have to one-on-one block. You can pin and pull. You can power scheme. You can down block and do that kind of stuff. And they were doing those type of things. They'd even use their receivers a little bit better on some of the crack blocks they were doing on getting outside and stuff. So that helped Deshaun manage the down and distances a little bit more, but he was better in the first half until at the end of the game, with making sure that he got the ball out of his hands and did a better job with that at the end of the game. There might have been a vasectomy or something on that when he didn't take that sack at the end.
Yeah,
no doubt.
That was rough, Blake. That last thing at the end was definitely rough.
Well, we're going to get back. We're going to get into talking in depth about the Browns and the Browns breakdown, and especially some of the end of the game scenarios, which we were talking about. It doesn't look like anybody knew what was going on, or some of those quarterbacks didn't know what was going on, and some of the other big talking points, from around the league and around the sports world from this past weekend. We've got a great show lined up for you. We're going to get into it with Chuck and GDubb, and then we're also going to be joined by a special guest, Scott Shanle, ex-starting linebacker for us for all those years, and championship winner, at the New Orleans Saints, and covers the NFC South and the New Orleans Saints. And we know that the Saints are rolling right now.
I was going to just apologize to anybody who's a Dallas Cowboy fan. He said the Saints first. Coach and I were keeping quiet. So.
No doubt. And hear about the Saints and what he's seen from them and what they got going on down there. Hear about Baker in Tampa Bay and some of the other, what's going on up in Carolina and some of the other NFC South, storylines from Scott Shanle. But hey, stick right with us. When we get back, we're going to go into covering the Browns breakdown. Welcome back in to Come Get Some, and this is our Browns breakdown. And I know we already started kind of getting into the Browns a little bit, and I know it's kind of like a little bit of an alphabet soup sort of game, right? Where you sit there and say, hey, a win's a win. I'll tell you this. In the NFL, a win is a win. Like there's no such thing as moral victories, no matter how good it looks. Like if you didn't lose, it's always. We heard Baker say this yesterday in his post game press conference. That, hey, it's always better to learn lessons with a win. Ugly wins are still wins. It's very, very, very hard to get wins in the NFL. But we can look at it the same way as well too, and say, hey, we got lucky, and we also have a saying in the NFL, which is like it's a marathon, right? Not a sprint, right? And every single week is trying to get better, right? It's a race to get better in the NFL, and we know like that effort on a week in, week out basis is maybe going to get you a Giants win, right? Like we talk about this upcoming week, but is not going to win the AFC North, is not going to win in the playoffs, is not going to get you in the playoffs. It's still not good enough. So it's good to get the win. But what were your kind of takes from it, Booms?
I thought of you guys instantly, especially Coach, because we talked about it last week. It sure looked like the Ken Dorsey spread has been abandoned a little early. Talk about man overboard, because here we were in those heavy packages, running, little play action, very little spread offense, which is what this whole thing was designed to be for Watson. And I'm just wondering what you guys thought about it. It's week 2, but they, looked so bad at home. Was there panic as they're putting this game plan together, going, we better go back to something we know how to do? What did you think it was?
Here's what I think. I believe with all my heart that was a great thing that Kevin did to take care of Deshaun.
Yeah.
Okay? You got to make sure that you're helping the quarterback in manageable down and distances. Quit having 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10s, because 1st and 10 was wrong, okay? Get it down into 2nd and short, 3rd and shorts. Manage those things and then take your calculated shot down the field. There's still plenty of reps. There's still plenty of time to have spread everything. You can spread everything you want to do, but you got to line up, okay, and you got to look another grown man in the eye, and you got to knock him off the ball, and you got to be able to run the ball, play action, take your shots that way. I really, really thought the way they came out and started that first half was very good, and it helped Deshaun function better as a quarterback.
Yeah, I totally agree. In the NFL too, the NFL, we always talk about this, it's a matchup league.
Yes.
Right? And so when you go into it, I mean, you could say you're a spread, you could say you're that, but to be, say, a Kansas City-ish, right? Maybe a Kansas City, maybe even a little bit of Buffalo, to say, like, this is who we are and this is who we're going to be every single week and stop it. You've got to have really premier players in those positions. Otherwise, it's a matchup league. And so I think a little bit of it was them looking at, like, okay, and Kevin doing a good job, and Dorsey and all them doing a good job with here's who we have healthy this week, and here's how that matches up with Jacksonville's defense, right? Like, how are we gonna handle that? And so, I mean, I loved the game plan. Right now, the way they're built, especially without Nick Chubb, especially with out David Njoku, especially
O-line.
especially with the tackle issues,
Yeah.
right? With Amari Cooper not catching down balls down the field, stuff like that. Is they are built to have to play ball control offense, shorten the game to allow their defense, their dominant defense and dominant special teams, to be able to win it. But if they can go and say, hey, we're going to not turn the ball over, which they didn't, and they're now 15-2 in games with Stefanski.
Can't be that
in which
simple.
they don't turn over the ball.
Yeah.
And you have that dominant of a defense. You have that, is you say, okay, hey, just don't lose, on offense. Don't get behind the sticks
you brought
on
up
offense.
Buffalo, because I put in my head, Coach, that's where Dorsey got fired.
Right.
And then if you watch the Bills this week, that running back kid was getting the ball, constantly. And so they've gone away from, now you'll still see some spread concepts because Allen's such a threat to run. But it's funny how now they've gone back to, you need a running back. Yeah, you need the run for exactly what you said. Give me 2nd and 6. Give me 3rd and 4, because that opens up a much bigger playbook of how to get the first down. You're right. If it's 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, they're going to pin their ears back, and it doesn't matter if Watson's an Olympic sprinter. He's going to get hit.
And here's the other thing, and I know that Doug Peterson has got to be thinking otherwise. A 16-play drive touchdown, 13-play drive touchdown, those are type of things that they were keeping the ball away from them. It gave and made the opposition, the home crowd, and also made the head coach there be impatient. And so all of a sudden they're trying to do all the spread stuff. They're trying to do all the things. How did Trevor like that? You're going to let Jim Schwartz pin his ears back, and with the defensive line that we got
Great
in pass
point.
rush,
Yep.
and all of a sudden it made life miserable for Trevor Lawrence and them just by managing the clock, keeping the ball for long periods of time, shortening the game. I thought it was really good, and they got some things to clean up in the second half. But I will tell you this: it had a dramatic effect on just the game plan and the thought processes with the Jacksonville staff.
Because Trevor Lawrence looked out of sorts.
He did.
He did.
There's games where he looks like every bit the pick they made him. And then there's games like yesterday, guys, where you go, wow, you're doing a really big disservice to a kid who's very athletic. He's got a rocket for an arm down the field. But I think you just nailed it, that they got out of sorts.
They did.
Their crowd was getting restless. Browns are chewing clock and going down the field. And if you do that, you also said Schwartz is going to have his guys pin the ears back. So everything,
and they did.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad, honestly, like, and both of you guys are mentioning, Schwartz, and so all of the defense, because I think maybe not enough talking points or respect has been put on that. It's like, okay, hey, it still looks a little off, with Watson or in the second half of the offense, or hey, they're lucky to have won that game, but that defense played dominant.
They did.
What I would say in kind of these talking points that we're talking about here, and I haven't seen enough stuff they kind of glossed over this. Not enough stuff be talked about this. But when you have an all-pro matchup problem tight end go down in pregame, that you're expecting to, we don't know to what degree their game plan was leveraged
Changed.
around that matchup. And then now it's a weather game and stuff like that. That's a comfort blanket for Trevor Lawrence. Like, how many of their schemes,
and I'm glad
how much
you
of their
mentioned weather.
offense,
Yes,
how
that
much of their
also changes
offensive
things.
game plan was geared around, like, say, Evan Ingram, and then all of a sudden not having Evan Ingram, right? Like, they don't have a replacement for that in Jacksonville. So how much did that, say, affect their game plan or affect him?
They got impatient, Coach, about what you talked about before we came in. With Trevor Etienne, the running back, what's he wear, 1? I think he wears number 1.
Oh, Travis Etienne, yeah.
Travis Etienne. And once they're out of sorts with getting the running game established, which is going to make Lawrence comfortable and all that, you could sense the panic. And I think you guys just both nailed it perfectly. For once, Cleveland dictated the
They
panic.
dictated the tempo
and dictated the panic. I love
the
like
whole
that.
Field
That's
position thing. Time on the clock. And you know what? Blake, you did a great job talking about how dominant the defense was. But has there been anybody talk about what a phenomenal job the punter did in the fourth quarter?
Oh, yeah.
And he
A lot of
put the
people
ball
talked
out
about
on
that,
the 2-yard line. I mean, and then had another punt, and he put the ball down inside the 10.
Well,
that's big
also
time.
That's a whole nother point, having to do that because we gave away 40-plus seconds.
I know.
All right, by Deshaun Watson not going down and taking a sack there at the end of the game, which we've all seen. I'll tell the fans out there, and I'll tell everybody out here who's trying to wonder about this, right? Just straight up, every single team at college, at the NFL level, everything practices that concept. You literally practice that concept. You practice the quarterback
every week.
You practice the quarterback getting in that scenario, and you say, remember, you got to go down and take a sack there. You just give yourself up. You actually, even most coaches like Stefanski and stuff like that, simulate that exact situation where you have to now say, hey, now I want to see you, even at a walkthrough, take a knee, like slide down, give yourself up, keep the clock running.
And put it in the communication into the helmet before the play to the quarterback.
A lot of times it's in the play call. I mean, that was some really, really, really bad decision there that could have cost them at the end of the game because the clock should have been running, and we said maybe it was a Clemson thing because then Trevor Lawrence took over and looked like he didn't know how to play. He was throwing Hail Marys with 30 seconds left, and we're like, that should have been picked off, and we're like, whoa,
I'll get on the phone with Dabo Sweeney and chew his butt out too,
Hey, listen, when he went back to pass in the end zone for the safety, that guy from the Browns was on him like he had his wallet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hot hike, and then, oh, my God, it was like the Red Sea parted in the lane, and the guy just came and so the combination coach, the punter, doing a great
He
job
did a
putting
great
that
job.
thing down there, and then the grounds being super aggressive, like you're talking about on defense.
But even that
safety's
decision,
big.
even that decision, as a quarterback playing the position, throw it away. You can't get away, throw it away. Can't get away. Well, what if they call a penalty? Call a penalty and get a safety. I don't care, but I don't want to see you get tackled and take a safety. Okay, he made no attempt to get rid of the ball.
Well, hey, it was great to see. It was great to see the Browns get one on the board. It's going to be exciting to see what they do. Hopefully, they can get another get-back game on the Giants with all their woes, this weekend, and
Another
get the Cleveland
victory
crowd, crunk and lit and going. But hey, stick right with us. When we get back, we're going to go around the NFL and all the talking points. Welcome back into Come Get Some, and this is around the NFL, and we're 2 weeks in now, and we've seen a lot of interesting things, right? A lot of interesting things in the NFL come up. The Saints' dominance, like we talked about around the draft time, GDubb, that we thought there was going to be a lot of interesting decisions made in the first round of the draft by people chasing quarterbacks, and a lot of those quarterbacks weren't going to play up, especially early enough to save people's jobs, play up to the standards of that draft pick, and we see that going on right now with all these first round draft picks either not playing, right? They're backing up, or they're injured, or the ones that are playing
or couldn't play dead in the Cowboy Western.
playing like they clearly aren't ready to be out there yet.
The Viking fans who went from, oh crap, the whole season's over, McCaffrey's he's done with it, and now Sam Darnold.
Oh, I'm so proud of him. We had a chance to coach Sam. So I'm so proud of him.
And that goes to show you, though, coaching and organization as well too, because you could talk about it on Sam Darnold, there and what he's doing, there at Minnesota, but they've done that with Kevin O'Connell's done that with multiple different quarterbacks here in a short amount of time, and Baker resurging down at Tampa Bay, and whoever Brock Purdy out in San Francisco, and so you see like good organizations and good coaches find a way to win.
No doubt.
And look at like Green Bay. Yep. Green Bay with Malik, Willis, right? And saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to throw the ball. We're going to just line up and run the ball.
14 passes.
And running for freaking 260, almost 300 yards, and going in and winning a game. And Matt LaFleur's won with Aaron Rodgers aging. Then he's done it with Jordan Love. Now he's gone and said, like, screw it, we're just going to run.
Somebody off the streets.
Yeah.
Malik Willis.
It looked like the Lombardi rules back in those days.
He was overdrafted, Malik Willis. The kid out of Liberty. And I think Tennessee grabbed him away.
Yep, they did.
That was outrageous. But, you see in every one of the younger quarterbacks, the Caleb Williams game, they look lost. They look lost. And then we talked about before he came in, Bryce Young, he's already benched. The Panthers said, that'll be enough of you. He was the number one pick in the draft.
They look lost because coaches want to do what they know how to do, not what the player can do. The players have to be able, you have to be able to function. And Blake, you just brought it up. Kevin O'Connell has done a great job. Do you think he's running the same stuff that he did with Kirk Cousins? He's doing things that Sam Darnold can do. And Kevin played the position and has coached the position of the quarterback. And that's why I'm so proud of what Sam's doing.
Well, and we've taken it there, so we'll talk it there. Like for fans out there that are watching, I mean, we have all these talking points, and I'm always gonna be a firm believer on this. We focus too much on the 21-year-old that we don't see living up to what we think they should be doing, and then we stick a mic in front of this person when they're in their worst moment. We don't stick it in front of the billionaire owners. Often we don't stick it in front of the coaches making the decision. We stick it in front of the GMs. We stick it in front of the 21-year-olds, and we say, and you have to answer exactly the right way in this moment and stuff like that. All right. But the moral of the story is what I'm talking about on this is like good organizations find a way to win. Like it does not matter. And, if it's who the quarterback is, Justin Fields, whatever. Like Chicago couldn't figure out how to do it with Justin Fields. Chicago can't figure out how to do it with Caleb Williams right now. But Mike Tomlin can.
You betcha.
Mike Tomlin can.
He threw less passes than Malik. I think, yesterday.
And I was
Fields.
sharing that text with you last night when Mike Tomlin was busting me after we were talking about that game.
The top two passers in the NFL through 2 weeks are Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield.
Yes.
Who were the two quarterbacks that couldn't get it done. And then Matt Rule's undefeated at Nebraska.
Yeah.
Right? So all of them were there at Carolina, and shown the door, but can thrive other places. You sit there and talk about at the 2015 Browns and the 2012 Redskins, again, two organizations who again, have had perennially issues.
That's it.
You had Kevin O'Connell, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, Sean McVay, right? And then you just say, no, screw that. We're going to fire everybody. And now those are all the people that most of the owners out there would do anything like they would trade. Like you trade for a player, maybe trade for those coaches, and those are the guys that are
and you were having
competing
me
for the
sit
Super
down
Bowls
at the
every
Senior
year.
Bowl in 2013 and talk to all those guys. We'd already scouted them.
And so before we give up too fast on players and we say it's the players' fault, especially when it happens again and again and again and again and again with players and coaches at a certain organization over time, say at what point in time,
be the ones who
at what
ran
point in
Baker
time
out
is
of
it top
town,
down?
Yeah.
At what point in time is it top down, especially when those coaches and players go thrive in other places? But hey, good organizations, that's why they keep winning. And bad organizations,
for
that's
you
why they
guys.
keep losing.
Redskins yesterday, and the Giants. I know you're good friends with Brian Dable. The Giants don't have a kicker, so they're using the Browns' old punter, Jamie Gillen,
Yeah.
the Scottish Hammer, and he can't do it. However, ready for this? The Redskins have 7 field goals, and who was it? The Browns' former draft pick, Austin Seibert.
I know.
That they said he sucked and ran him out of town. He made 6, including the game winner, and they were all pretty far away. And then how did Seibert get the job for the last part of this? I knew you'd love this. Cade York, who was here, and we let him go so he could go be the Redskins kicker. He stunk the first week, and they cut him.
Yeah.
And brought the other Browns guy back.
And
But
he made
wow.
7 field goals
7
to
field
win.
goals.
Made 7.
First
and
time.
Dan and I talked.
First team ever to the Giants became the first team ever to score 3 touchdowns, allow none, and have no turnovers and lose the game in
I know.
regulation. Yeah.
And Dan and I talked last night
21 to 18.
about those 7 field goals. And again, just like that with Brian Dable. And the fact, here's the deal. The one thing that Boom and I talked about, the kicker goes on the injury report on Friday.
Yeah.
You got 52 men on your roster. If there's an open spot, and you don't elevate your practice squad kicker to take him into the game and to make sure he's on the sideline in case this guy has some type of a, and I won't say what type of an injury because you guys used to blister me on what part of the body it was that was hurting him. Okay, but he pulls his groin
I have
or whatever.
a feeling it's a part of the body that the 3 of us don't have.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. And anyway, but all of a sudden
kickers.
he can't kick, and we don't have anybody else to kick. Okay,
Mhm.
it just drives me bananas.
And you were
when I
right
seen that.
outside when we talked about a coach because you said, "What the hell is the general manager
Yeah,
doing?
and
Why
what-
are they
and what
all
is it?
barking at Brian?
Why are they
Dable?"
barking at Brian? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing on the roster? Again, hey, schedule, personnel, business. Every single meeting with me, those are the 3 things we talk about, and BS is way down the line.
Well,
okay?
we're over here saying WTF GMs and like rosters. What about the classic viral WTF moment for the second straight week in Tennessee
Will
with Will
Levis.
Levis
Oh,
and
my God.
and young Brian
Yeah.
Callahan. Hey, young Brian Callahan get this. So you want to be an NFL head coach?
you no doubt.
Be careful what you wish for when you
Yeah.
sit there and say don't do anything stupid.
I had all kinds of former players of yours and mine last night texting me saying, would you make him go up and now start selling beer? Because that's what I would tell him. He's done playing, okay? He can't get it for whatever reason. I've told him not to do that kind of stuff. Go sell beer. You're not playing anymore.
So I'm against him going into the stands selling beer because the way he throws a football, you're gonna put a kid's eye out with that beer can. Hey, you need a Miller? Whoa, sorry. You said that outside. I'd tell him once and then we'd never see it again.
It's over.
But you wonder why, and I think you touched on it perfectly. When you have a younger coach like that, and Will is a young kid, they're just trying to do this little dance of, well, I'm the coach, but you're the starter, and you
Mhm.
coach with your dad. He doesn't do that. It's Baker high, and this is what we're gonna do.
It's not about
And
liking, it's about
yeah,
respecting. And if they
that's
can't
exactly
respect,
right.
it's over with. We'll like each other later on. But
Well, hey,
you got it.
speaking of Baker, stick right with us because when we get back, we're going to be joined by Scott Shanle, and we're going to talk about all things NFC South. Welcome back in to Come Get Some, and GDubb and I are excited. We're joined by our special, virtual guest this week, Scott Shanle, who played 10-year linebacker in the NFL, was our starting will linebacker, won a Super Bowl together, so many great memories together, and is in the sports commentary world as well too. And I know heavily covering as well too the Saints, and then looking at the NFC South as well too. And there's so many huge talking points down there. But hey, thanks for joining us, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. Good time to talk about some Saints. Are rolling a little bit, but always good memories with you guys for sure.
Yeah, it's great to see you too, my man. And you're doing a fantastic job with this. And I think about you all the time. And I hope that I never hurt you psychologically with some of the things I said.
No. Maybe you got the best out of me on the football field, and that's what counts, right? So, a lot of good times. I mean, I saw all the guys. We were out at training camp the last week of Saints camp. So Vegeta was out there, Roman Harper, all the guys, Drew Brees, Lance Moore, all these guys were out there, and we had a ton of good stories. So we owe you guys a debt of gratitude for all the great memories we have.
Oh man.
Well, speaking of that, and speaking of those good stories, and now it's funny, it's like we're up at the 15-year anniversary, right? And our DB coach from that time is the head coach now, DA, Dennis Allen, and kind of the way that they're just kind of set up and built right now. But at the 15-year anniversary mark, like, they've been shocking people through the first 2 weeks, man. What have you seen? What have you seen from them down there these first 2 weeks? Covering people. I know the first week maybe people said it's the opponent, but going into Dallas, and especially what we just saw Dallas come up here and do to the Browns in week 1. What have you been seeing from those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I have an interesting perspective because I've been the analyst for those teams. So I've covered them, for a number of years, and I've seen the transition from Drew to Derek Carr, from Sean Payton to DA. So, I was there for the last couple of years when expectations weren't being met, and to be down there in the do post-game show and see Dennis and just keep encouraging him, like, man, Dennis, you're a great coach. I know the wins and losses aren't showing that, but you have to believe that. So, this team was better than their record has been the last couple of years. But in the end, it doesn't matter, right? You got to win games, and that's what everybody cares about. But they reminded me a lot of, the culture and the chemistry wasn't broken. So I went out there for training camp. Dennis took them out to California for a month. It was the best thing that could happen to this team. They need to get closer. They need to grow together. And just being around the team, off the field, going to the hotel, going to team meetings, seeing DeMario Davis coach up the young guys, seeing the defensive line group work together. I was like, man, I got goosebumps sitting in those meeting rooms because I was like, this feels exactly like what we had. It has nothing to do with chemistry or culture. That is not broken. And so seeing them have success week 1 and then going on the road against Dallas and beating them the way they did, obviously a new offensive coordinator has given them a big jump, a big spark plug, scored on 14 of the 16 offensive drives so far this year. Eventually, that's not going to be that percentage forever, but I think this defense, to me, is still the strength of this team. That's what's funny is you haven't even seen the strength of this team come out yet because the offense has been playing so well. So I see a lot of the same comparisons from our team to this team. Mainly, the offense is scoring a lot of points. The defense can be super aggressive. And the number one thing, if there's the one thing I've taken away from the last 2 weeks, is the Saints swagger is back.
Yes.
The walking around with the head, with the shoulders back, like no one is doing anything to us. Like this team has got that back, and that's what's exciting.
I think that's exciting too, Scott, and I'm so happy you're talking about body language because body language speaks so loudly that now all of a sudden you don't have to listen to stupid stuff that people are saying, okay? And you got to be able to enforce it with body language and look at another grown man in the eyes and say, here we are, here we're coming, we're getting after you. And DA and everybody there is doing a great job with that.
Yeah, this team just needed some success. And like I said, last couple of years, the wins haven't followed the work they've been putting in. But I think now you're seeing all that work starting to pay off in wins. And it's fun seeing their body language. Like you said, it's fun seeing the smiles, the dance in the locker room, and all that hard work is paying off. And you guys know this. In 2009, we won 13 in a row, and it just kind of snowballs. That confidence just snowballs, and you start playing to a level that you never thought possible.
No doubt, no doubt. And we say like, history, I guess like doesn't always, repeat itself, but it does rhyme, so to say. We hear that, I'm
Yep.
sure you've seen all of the stats out there, Scott, where it's like, hey, most points in the post-merger or modern era, in the first 2 weeks, right? And that's like whatever, 91 points, by the 71 Cowboys or whatever, and they won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
91 points by this Saints team, and 93 points by our Saints team in 09 that won the Super Bowl, right? And so so those two teams won the Super Bowl, and them being right there. And I just look back to sit there and say, like, Derek Carr's situation, right? In kind of where he came, and kind of the similarities to a degree of Drew's situation at the Chargers, and then coming here and like, how would you ever, let that guy go, and sort of thing. And almost like Demario Davis, like kind of in that role in that situation, like Vilma was, and you got a Cam Jordan type, like a Will Smith, type, right? And then even like offensive attitude, right? You'd probably say in this modern NFL game, what Clint, Kubiak is doing is probably just a modernized version, kind of same as what like Dan Campbell and them are doing up in Detroit, but a modern version of kind of like what we did on offense at that time. And then same thing, what DA's done is just modernized a couple of things, but it's still 85% of what we were doing back in 09 and 10 and 11. And it's interesting to see so far. What are you seeing from the rest of the NFC South down there?
Yeah, I think Atlanta had a lot of hype in the offseason. Obviously, adding Kirk Cousins, everybody picked Atlanta to be the favorite in the NFC South, and a lot of people still stomping on the NFC South like it's the worst division in football. But I think the Buccaneers are playing good football. Going up to Detroit and winning a game up there is not easy to do, especially the way that Detroit and as talented as they are. The Saints jumping out to where they've been 2-0. This division is probably a 3-team race. Carolina is going to be up there in the top of the pecking order, the way it looks anyway. But I think Atlanta is one of those teams that had a lot of hype in the offseason because they added a veteran quarterback, and everybody kind of thought that was the missing piece of the puzzle. Now, they may be in the hunt. Tonight's game against Philadelphia will go a long way in proving whether or not they're in that contention in the NFC. But I really think the NFC comes down to, I think the Lions are a good team. I think the 49ers are always going to be in the hunt as long as Kyle Shanahan's there and they're doing what they're doing. McCaffrey gets healthy. But that being said, there's never been a better time for the Saints to get in this thing. The NFC, to me, is kind of wide open, and you just need to keep playing consistent football. Injuries go a long way, but just keep playing consistent football, and it's just taking 1 week at a time and not listen to the outside noise. And I think that team in New Orleans has done a really good job of that.
No doubt, man. And you talked about Carolina a little bit, and obviously, the big news out there, right now this week is the kind of shocking, surprise of, hey, benching of Bryce Young. And so, I mean, obviously seeing all of the turmoil, I know, like, you saw even what they went through with Matt Rule, there. And then now Matt Rule's at your alma mater, undefeated, smacking down people and whatnot. And we talk about, you see what Sam Darnold's doing in Minnesota, and you see what Baker's doing down in Tampa Bay.
All three of those guys are undefeated.
So talk a little bit about, Carolina and just kind of state they're in right now, and maybe at what point in time it becomes, say, top down, ownership down, and kind of an organizational problem, and not necessarily the coaches and players that you're rolling through there every single year.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's hard to tell an owner, who buys a team that he's not right or he should listen to other people. That's first and foremost. I think you need to hire people that know more than you about football and trust them. There is not an organization, and this is why I push back on this. Going back to the Saints, they wanted Derek Carr out of there after 1 year. They wanted DA fired after 2 years. And I said, listen, guys, there's a difference between functional organizations in pro sports and non-functional organizations. Carolina is not a functional organization. It's chaos. You fire a coach after a few games. You have how many head coaches over the past few years? It is hard to build and sustain success that way. There's no expectation year in and year out for what's in store. And that's why I say functional organizations like New Orleans, when the free agents walk in and the rookies walk in, the older guys who have had success there, they tell them what's expected. That doesn't exist in Carolina. Like, who's the leader? You're going to ask Bryce Young because he was the number 1 overall pick to be the leader. He hasn't played well enough. And I don't know if it's because he can't play or if because he doesn't have good enough players around him to help him. You need a supporting cast in the NFL. Nobody can do it all by themselves. So it's dysfunctional from, I think, talent level maybe scheme, fit. It's dysfunctional. It's hard to win every single week under those circumstances in this business.
And I get hired to tell those dysfunctional owners, no, we're not doing that. And I have no problem about saying go back and play the stock market or do whatever else you're making money with, but you never played, you never coached, you haven't got a clue about what it is to win inside the white lines.
Well, no doubt.
Yeah,
and then,
absolutely.
And then you talked about it as well, too. It's like you said with Bryce Young, and then you shipped off all of those potential people that it would be, right? You kind of you fired the kind of coaches and you brought on like unproven first-time guys, and you shipped off the Christian McCaffreys of the world, the DJ Moores of the world, the Brian Burnses of the world, like the Frankie Louvus of the world, right? So all of your alphas. And
I mean, just think about that, Blake. Think about those names you just listed. It is a player-driven league. You don't ship players like that out of your organization and just pick up
great
where
players.
you left off.
No doubt. Well, hey, brother, man, I appreciate you hopping on and joining us. I guess you're right in the middle of this little, Saints linebacker run, because we had Goldilocks, Alex Anzalone on last week, and we've got we've got Demario Davis hopping on next week. So we've got this little run of former current Saints linebackers right now, man. But hey, real quick, let's get a break with Scott like we do, like we're back in the meeting. So let's GDubb, give us a come get some break right here on 3.
Understand, we're going to say ready break, and then you're going to say come get some without the B word. All right, here we go. Ready? Ready break. Come get some.
Appreciate you, brother. Hey, stick right with us when we get back. We're going to go round table hot seat with GDubb and Chuck Booms asking him rapid fire questions. Welcome back into Come Get Some, and this is our hot seat, our rapid fire ask the coach hot seat. So what do you got for us this week, my man?
Ask the coach is.
Okay.
You ain't getting out of it this week.
Okay.
You're in it now.
Okay.
We're gonna see who.
Don't be afraid of his answer.
That's exactly right, Coach. All right, here we go. First one. I'll start with you, Coach. Who's in bigger trouble? Baltimore or Cincinnati, both 0-2.
Right now, I'm going to say, just from the terms of some people behind the scenes, I'd say Cincinnati. And the big thing is, until they get, the tampons, everything taken care of with the receiver, with him, we'll see how all that goes. But defensively, they're pretty strong. But I'll never, ever, ever second guess John Harbaugh.
Blake, bigger trouble. Baltimore or Cincy, 0-2.
Yeah.
Cleveland 1-1, and of course we all had the smart money on the Steelers being 2-0.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I would agree with Cincy as well too. I mean, not just where are they going to be at with Jamar Chase, right? And now him saying like we're not doing any deal. I took out a $50 million insurance policy and we're not doing any deal. And then hey, are they going to have to move on from T. Higgins anyways? And where's Joe Burrow's health at, right? And kind of just all the issues they have there with building a team. But I agree with GDubb as well too. Like over a 17-game season, I'm not going to, Harbaugh and that roster that they have and Todd Monken just know how they are, All
right, I just want James Rapine to know down in Cincinnati I had nothing to do with that whatsoever.
And that's not easy to be a coach there anyway.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, here we go. Rapid fire number 2. Blake, we'll start with you on this one. Biggest shocker of Sunday. Dallas's home blowout, Ravens lose to the Packers, or Vikings beat San Francisco with another. Darnold throws a 105-yard bomb.
I would say probably the Vikings beating San Francisco. That would have been the biggest shocker.
The number one shocker for me was the Vikings beating San Francisco, but it wasn't very much in front of the Cowboys getting the socks knocked off of them.
I mean, they got annihilated. I just for me, I could not believe that the Ravens were at home up 10.
I know.
And let Gardner Minshew and the Raiders, although
there's some special team things that were not done very well towards the end of that game, special situations and special team things, and John Harbaugh is a master at those things, and it came back to haunt him.
Yep. Totally. All right, here we go. Rapid fire number 3. Worst coaching blunder of Sunday. Coach, we'll start with you. Is it the Giants not having a kicker active on the roster, or Dan Campbell somehow finding 17 guys? The ref even said it, the whole place laughed. We have a penalty, 17 men on the field, ends up costing the Lions at the end, or do you think it's the Giants not
I can't
having
wait
a
to
kicker?
talk to Dan Campbell about that one, because he's already come out and said it was his fault, the whole thing, because he played for us and everything, and I've told him I'd move him over and find a place for him to play on defense, because he's a tough son of a gun. But, okay, the fact that the Giants did not take the backup kicker with them and put them on the active roster when the starting kicker shows up on the injury report on Friday, I shake my head and I'm wondering what the heck the GM's doing, or whoever's in charge of personnel.
Like,
I think it was the Polish defense. That's what Dan Campbell was running. He was just running the Polish defense.
You know him.
That's it. We'll have to bring in the old Buddy Ryan playbook
I
sometime.
know.
And so that was a play in the Buddy.
Yes, it was.
And he was
You
called
know
the
that.
Polish defense, and he would literally put in 15 guys
He
on
would.
defense, goal line, into game type scenario where you were trying to waste the clock. Like the league had to change
And the
some of the rules
rules
on that.
changed
But they
because
were
of
like,
that.
yeah, we're not going to let you score. And yeah, you're just going to keep going half the distance to the goal, but we're not going to let you score. And there's like under 8 seconds left on the clock. And so, and like, you're just going to kind of run. And
You
then
were
we're going to
only 9 or 10 years old when it was
and then we're
doing
going
the
to
Polish
sub back to,
defense.
we're going to sub back to
Oh,
our
man.
real defense and just have to play one play versus multiple plays down here. We're going to make it a one play.
My respect out to the Polish American Club of Cleveland. I will just say Punchki. I think that's
Yeah,
the
there
name
you
of that
go.
thing that
There
they
you
eat.
go.
Last rapid fire. You ready, guys? Here we go. I'm going to give you a choice of 1 or 2, or unless you have somebody else on the top of your head, they're already talking around the league. Who's got the hottest hot seat in coaching right now? Brian Daboll or McCarthy?
Right now, unfortunately, and both those guys are great friends. I think it's just because of the New York market, and I think it's Daboll at the Giants.
Yeah, I agree. I think Brian Daboll's definitely got a way hotter seat, right now. The market, just where things have gone with like Daniel Jones. You got Hard Knocks, whole situation, which just typically when you have a team performing like this coming off of Hard Knocks, they already haven't been getting it done. That's why they are on Hard Knocks, and typically you don't survive through that thing.
I'll probably
so
see Brian this weekend.
They better turn things around in a heartbeat.
And I'm hoping, for Brian's sake, that we don't have to see Saquon Barkley run for 300 yards tonight on Monday Night Football.
Oh, no.
That's the end of rapid fire for this go around. Now next time I got to get one of you going ahead. You agreed. You agreed.
Yeah, and you got to pick
Well,
some arguments,
yeah,
because
we're-
we typically
we're
argue
too
all the time.
We think alike, so we're too similar, which leads to a lot of arguments.
It does, at
but
least a lot,
sometimes on
because
these
you say some of the times is that we're talking about the same thing, but because I can't hear. Well, I can hear. I have selective hearing.
All right, next time I'll step this up. I'll make it more controversial. You got it.
Hey, well, stick right with us, because when we get back, we're going to go with our 2-minute drill. Hey, welcome back into Come Get Some, and this is our 2-minute drill. And GDubb and I are going to try to operate this 2-minute drill way better than Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence did, and some of these other quarterbacks, both young and old, who look like they haven't played end-of-game scenarios this past week, which was a little alarming. But GDubb, looking forward and looking ahead at the Browns versus Giants this upcoming week, what are the keys to victory for the Browns versus the Giants this week?
I'm going to do the same one that I started with last week. Is number 1, stay on time on offense and run the football. Okay, stay on time, run the football. Okay, no turnovers. Okay, do not put the ball in sudden change situations and then let the defense hunt. Okay, let it do it. And now when I say let the defense hunt, now defensively, nothing over the top. Nothing over the top. Nothing over the top. Back the F up. Okay, let's go.
No doubt. It's about winning in this league. We saw the Packers do it this past week. We've seen it now 2 straight weeks, the Steelers, all right? We don't have to win on offense. Deshaun Watson doesn't have to have 1,000,000 yards and be the hero. Play to the strengths of your team, get your offense healthy, and win games. Win the games you're supposed to win in this league as you're chasing in this AFC North, right? And you see the good teams do it. If we're going to be the good team, if the Browns are going to be the good team and the competitive team, they've got to do this. Don't turn over the ball. Manage it on offense. If you have a great explosive day on offense, that's great.
That's fine.
But don't turn the ball over. Manage the game. Play dominant defense and get it rolling. All right, pretty simple from that standpoint.
Can't be that simple.
Can't be that simple. Well, hey, GDubb, on that note, send us out.
All right, here we go. Ready, break?
Come get some.